Hi there villagers, today I am making the Allison's yeast and flour recipe for bread using their own yeast. It comes in a little tin like this in powdered form. First we're going to need 500 grams of strong white flour. This recipe never fails. It's always good as an emergency standby. Slightly too much, slightly too little. There we go. You're also going to need some flour for the kneading out process, but we'll put it over there for now. So flour and then salt, 1.5 teaspoons. One and a half. One teaspoon of sugar to give the yeast something to munch on. $7-gram sachet, or 2 teaspoons if you are doing it by powder. You can see what it looks like. It's like a granulated, kind of like granulated sugar, but slightly smaller. Don't put it near the salt because salt doesn't actually help the yeast much. And then we're looking for 15 mils or 1 tablespoon of vegetable oil. You can use 15 grams of soft butter or melted butter, but 15 grams isn't very much, so it's a lot of fat to weigh and measure out and then melt without destroying the fat. Right, that's all we need the measuring spoons for. And then we're going to use 300 grams of warm water to mix it all together. I am going to weigh it because I've just poured hot water into this jug. So I'm just going to put a bit of cold in to mix it up. If you can put your finger in it and it doesn't singe you, then you've done a good job. So now we're going to weigh out 300 millilitres. My scales does both grams and millilitres. There we go. And mix. The scales can go away. So it all looks a bit yucky so far, but we're going to mix it all together and then knead for 10 minutes, which I will show you how I do it. You can develop your own style. And then it goes back into the bowl and sits in a warm place for 30 to 45 minutes. And then you can bake it. It's a let it rise once recipe because we are using easy bake yeast. If you were using fresh yeast, I think I'm right in saying you would need to do a double rise. Knock it back once and then let it do the second rise. Right, as you can see, it's a little bit dry, but that means we don't have to put much flour onto the table. I did a baking class once and they gave us these. They actually gave me the 2 blue ones. This one came from Bake with Jack, who, if you haven't found him on YouTube, I do suggest you follow him. He does lots of things with sourdough amongst other things as well. So we're going to spread a little bit of flour on the worktop, which I now realise you can't see. so I will adjust the camera angle. There we go, gentle sprinkling. And then we're going to tip it all out in its powdery form. My bowl has a shaped bit, which is useful not only for pouring, but for cleaning off your wooden spoon. That can go away for a minute. And this is generally how I knead. Take all your superfluous rings off. I can't get mine off. Flour your hands. Try not to let it stick to your worktop. So we're going for a smush effect to start with. Keep your scraper nearby. Okay, I end up with a triangle shape from the way I knead. So we set a timer for 10 minutes and off we go. 10
minutes, counting down.
So we're going for a push and a pull effect. As you can see, it is taking the flour with it. So mix it round. Keep hold of your flour if you can. Add more flour if you need to. And off we go for 10 minutes. Quite quickly you should be able to feel the texture change. This has gone a little bit more cohesive and smooth feeling, and by the end of the 10 minutes you should be able to do the window pane effect, which we will show you. Quite energetic, so if you need a bit of a cardio workout or an arm workout, this is definitely the thing to do. Let's see, the texture is already starting to change. If you can press it in and it comes back out again quite quickly, then you've already got to 10 minutes. Mine's not quite yet ready yet. I don't really need the flour so much on the worktop now because it's changed texture and it is helping with the kneading process, that it sticks a little bit to the worktop. But for goodness sake, don't leave it and wander off and do something else, because it will be difficult to get off, especially a wooden one. I don't make bread very much anymore, but during COVID I did keep a sourdough starter for a little while. I had awful trouble getting the recipe quite right to actually make bread with it, which is why I recommend Bake with Jack, because his sourdough recipe was foolproof. But to make sourdough is quite long-winded. And my sourdough starter, called Boris, partly because our Prime Minister was called Boris during COVID. And I thought it was funny that I had to feed Boris every day. There is a recipe on the channel for sourdough muffins, which is also using a sourdough starter, or your discard if you operate your sourdough starter that way. But my sourdough has long since died. I did manage to give away some babies from it though. So it's gone quite a nice smooth texture, and it is starting to spring back. We must be at least halfway through the timer now, I reckon. I'm deliberately not going to speed this section up so that you can see how it changes. So how are you? Let's chat for a few minutes. At the time of filming, Charlotte's just got into the school play, so it's all we can do to keep track of whether or not we're eating tea before or after various rehearsals and other activities. Life feels very busy, but she quite likes being very busy. Nick always wants to know when his tea's going to be. The weather's just started to turn. At the time of filming, it's the back end of September. And it's been wet for several days. But yesterday I managed to dry laundry outside. Something that I don't get to do very often in September, especially as winter carries on. I don't think I should have put that last lot of flour. It's taking a little while to absorb. It's a good way of cleaning your worktop too. I mean, obviously start with a clean worktop, but once you've started spreading flour around, you then need to collect it back up on your bread dough. We have 3 minutes left. So because of how I position my hands, I generally end up with a slightly triangle shaped piece of dough. But keep your dough moving all the time. Wiggle it round, turn it from different angles. Make sure it gets a fair go all over. Charlotte's in her GCSE year, so now we're going to have to start thinking about A-level options and whether or not she wants to stay at the school that she's been at for the last 5 years, because they do have an excellent performing arts programme in their sixth form, or whether she wants to try seeing what else there is out there. So we've got 5 open evenings booked in October, as well as all these rehearsals and things, just to see whether or not she gets to stay at Ashfield, or whether she has to stay at Ashfield. I'm hoping that she gets to stay rather than she has to, because there's nothing else out there that does the combination she wants, because she wants to do maths and either chemistry or physics, and then drama at A-level, and then performing arts as a BTEC, which is a big ask for a lot of places to do both performing arts and drama. So we'll see how that progresses. The dough is coming along very nicely now. I do suggest you put some oil in the bottom of your bowl before you put the dough back in, so that as the dough develops, you'll be able to get it back out of the bowl easy. It doesn't really matter what warm place counts as, unless your kitchen is freezing. Just leaving it in the windowsill in the kitchen will do. Some people turn their oven on very low or just with the light on and pop the bowl in there. You could put it in your airing cupboard or a warm kitchen windowsill or a different windowsill somewhere else. But depending on the time of year and how warm the environment is, it will depend on how fast you notice any growth. The better you're kneading at this stage, which is why I set a timer, the better growth you'll get out of it. And that's 10 minutes. So we have quite a nice smooth surface now. And whilst it doesn't come back out completely, it does spring a bit. The window pane method is, can you get your bread so thin that you can see through it? Well, it's sort of opaque window. Right, bring the bowl back. Put a drizzle of oil in the bottom and swish it round. Don't worry about shaping it at this stage. But you could just leave it as a ball. You could put the oil into a tin and shape it into the tin and leave it for the 30 to 45 minutes. I'm going for a round, I think, at this point. So pop it in, cover with a tea towel, leave in a warm place, and come back in 30 to 45 minutes. So the 45-minute time has gone off. I don't appear to have grown very much, so it's obviously not very warm in this kitchen. And now I'm going to tip it out onto this greaseproof sheet, onto a baking tray, and pop it in the oven. So we're going to bake the loaf for 15 minutes at 230 degrees C, and then reduce to 200 for a further 20 minutes. And then turn out onto a wire rack and try not to eat it too fast. As you can see, it hasn't grown a lot, so I'm hoping it grows a bit more in the oven. While the oven's pre-warming, I might just sit it near the oven just to get a last little bit of the heat. So it's now cold. It's really heavy. Actually, it's still quite warm underneath. And we'll cut it and see what it looks like. Very dense. Maybe I'll have to have another go. Hope you have better luck. It doesn't even take the butter very well. He can have a bit and I can have a bit to try. Hope your bread's more successful than mine.